Well, good morning. How is everyone? I hope you're all well on this stupendous Sunday. That's it, it's Sunday. Should be the day of rest, but who's resting? You resting? I'm not resting. Not at all. Not at all. Even though I could really do with a rest. I know. Anyway, we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes. You're looking absolutely amazing, I must add, so I hope you're having a fantastic weekend, what's left of it. And by the way, I think it's like 19 subscribers to hit 100,000 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do like the video. Even if you don't, again, just do something nice. It should come back around, shouldn't it? But what are we talking about in this video? We are talking about the fact that what seems to be hot topic at the moment is something that we have considered way back when. We spoke about multiple perpetrator crime, multiple perps. The crime reeks of a situation that was more than one person. This is my opinion. Everything stated in this video, by the way, is just my opinion. I'm not a law enforcement expert. I have no ability to do anything beyond look at information that is out there, just like some of you guys, and come to a conclusion. But that conclusion ultimately has no bearing on fact. It's just spitballing together. I want it to be like we're sitting down the pub or a restaurant if you're not into drinking, or around a campfire, and we're just talking about things, and that's what I want us to feel like. But there is some information that kind of floats around this crime that does push our thoughts and feelings a little bit further, and you could actually say, hold on, there's quite a lot of evidence around this case that would suggest that the Idaho 4 was in fact a multiple perpetrator crime. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put on the screen here, somebody reached out to me, and this is an ongoing conversation, and when this conversation comes to fruition, I will bring the information to you. But this person is suggesting that they have had a conversation and can prove the conversation is legit, that the Gonzalez family, someone in the Gonzalez family, whoever is controlling the Gonzalez family page, has openly admitted to them knowing that this is a multiple perpetrator crime. And in fact, they are stating that they're going after Bryan Kohberger because they can. Now, they obviously seem to believe that he is the person who did this crime, but seemingly suggest he didn't do it on his own. And the person who he did it with cannot be gone after. Now, what we're going to talk about in a second is Brent Copacker. And I know that some people get real uncomfortable when we talk about Brent Copacker, but I'm going to show you something that was brought to my attention by Michael Addario. And it was something that happened on the 12th of November 2022 at the University of Idaho Theatre. So we're going to come to that in a second, but what I'm talking about here is if the Gonzalez family have, and again, I can't offer this 100% credibility at this stage because I haven't seen everything I need to see. I was busy yesterday, the person I was speaking to, and I think the time difference. So I'll wait and see what happens. But this is what the person's suggesting. But I can't see Steve Gonzalez being a guy who would be like, oh, I'm going to be happy to not be able to go after that person if that person still exists. Does that make sense? I think that Steve Gonzalez is potentially someone who, hell and high water, he'll pull the world down and even risk legal justice, if you like, in the hunt for some degree of retribution for what happened to his family. And look, maybe it's difficult for some people to process that emotion unless you've been in it, and it's very easy. I talk about skin in the game, and that it's easy for people without skin in the game to criticize someone else's actions and the way that they do things. So I have to take heed my own advice, I guess, and say, look, I don't fucking know. I do know that there's certain things that I wouldn't do and would do if it happened to me, and they do differ slightly from Steve Gonzalez. But then I think to myself, but again, you're not it hasn't happened to you, so you're coming at it from an angle that you don't know, you just think you know. But anyway, that's by and by. But point being, I don't think that if there was a second perpetrator or multiple perpetrators that were alive, that Steve Gonzalez wouldn't try and burn the world down to try and get to them. So this then leads me into the Brent Copacker situation, because when you talk about multiple perpetrators, it changes the entire dynamic of this crime. Now, law enforcement are obviously going real hard on Bryan Kohberger. We know that Bryan Kohberger has referenced Brent Copacker right back to the traffic stop, which some people would say that that's odd, some people wouldn't. We know that it was stated that Bryan Kohberger himself, upon arrest, had seemingly suggested that there could be multiple perpetrators if you believe that Bryan Kohberger was involved in this crime, and believe that what was said, he said. Now, some people have said that that has been debunked, but who knows what the fuck has been debunked around this crime, and who is the person who gets to debunk things? We simply don't know. But look, what we're going to look at is this. So this is the thing that Michael Addario brought to my attention, which is this One Night Cry Havoc show explores the neurosis of war through Shakespeare. Now, this happened at 8 p.m. Saturday, the 12th of November, at the University of Idaho's Forge Theatre, done by a guy called Stefan Wolfert. Now, in the description of this video, there is a link that will take you to a YouTube video of this show, if you like, which is a one-man show which takes you on a journey, very, very clever, but very, very thought-provoking, very, very it's you could really see if somebody was watching this, had access to this, and they had a military experience, a military background, and they were suffering from, let's say, PTSD, this could be incredibly, incredibly triggering. So it's very interesting that around the time of this crime, we have a guy on the peripheral of this crime who is suffering from PTSD. He has a penchant, if you like, for collecting bladed weapons, which we know that his friend come out and said, and he was executed. However you want to look at it, he was executed by law enforcement. So I think to myself, that entire story around Brent Copacker is uncomfortable because we don't seem to know what happened, why they did it. They talk about his roommates, he was holding them hostage, but that doesn't seem to be accurate. Lana over at Truth and Transparency, she did a video that showed all of the body cam footage, and that didn't seem right. Some of it even seemed like that had been manipulated, played over in a loop, but it didn't depict what you would consider a viable reason for executing someone with a SWAT team. It just didn't feel that way, and this is still an ongoing situation. But then we have the Idaho 4, which is now, there's more and more evidence that seems to suggest that this could indeed be a multiple perpetrator crime, especially if this information from the Gonzalez family is accurate and they are turning around saying, yeah, we know that there's another person involved in this, but seem to suggest that that person cannot be gone after. The only person that would make any sense around would be Brent Copacker, because I feel that Steve Gonzalez could be a man that, if he felt that Brent Copacker had been involved, say, in cahoots with Bryan Kohberger. Because again, what I will say is, I've never believed that Bryan Kohberger could have done this on his own. I just don't see it. But if you open up the realms of a multiple perpetrator crime, does it make more sense that Bryan Kohberger could have been involved? There are still issues with Bryan Kohberger being involved, because we still have the issue with the time advance records. Do they show exculpatory evidence in terms of, look, he's Bryan Kohberger's seen somewhere else? We know that there's some exculpatory evidence apparently in the background with Bethany Funk. Now, could that evidence have simply be that she saw Bryan Kohberger in the area but not in the house? And at the time of the crime, Bryan Kohberger wasn't inside the house, which then opens up a whole can of worms, doesn't it? It opens a can of worms, because the issue that you have with Brent Copacker, because of his military history, because of the fact he had PTSD that was seemingly brought on by traumatic brain injury, if you then find that law enforcement have executed him, you're not just going to be able to say, well, we did it because he was connected to the Idaho 4 case. That just ain't going to wash. That comes, Brent Kopacker's execution by law enforcement would have huge ramifications, even if he did have some kind of connection to this crime. I'm not saying he did. I'm just trying to make sense of, if we're going down the route of a multiple perpetrator situation, who could that be? Because again, it changes the entire dynamic of the crime if you shift from one single solitary person who goes into the house and does this crime, because you then open up the world to, why would a group of people do this? Again, we've looked at the frat situation, the fact that there was seemingly a fight. There is proof and evidence through family statements that would suggest that there was a fight this night, and it got quite bad. And, we've always looked at or some of us have looked at the fraternity, but we understand that there's a lot of moving pieces. Would someone have spoken now? I don't know, because we see in the course of history how many people have died through hazing, and people have shut the fucking mouth then. How many people, what do you think the numbers of hazing deaths truly are? And even though I'm not saying that this is a hazing death, look at the Timmy Reed situation. If Timmy Reed would have fell on the floor and smacked his head and died the night he was attacked by 50 people, or 50 people turn up at his property in Moscow, Idaho, would they have come forward and spoken about it? Or would that have been put down to something else? We don't know, because luckily he didn't die, but we do know that it was going to be swept under the rug. It was going to be hidden by the University of Idaho. It wasn't until Timmy Reed's family sought legal intervention privately that it got brought to people's attention. But even now, it's gone silent. We've heard nothing else. So have they been paid off? Has there been something happen to make that quietly disappear? Who knows? But let me know down below, a multiple perpetrator crime. I will, like I said, when this information comes back to me and I can verify that there does seem to be some absolute credibility to it, we'll have a discussion about it. I am live tonight, so please do join me tonight, because we're going to go through the court docs and we're going to look at a few of them together, and look at what's being said and what we think and feel about it. But look, multiple perpetrator crime, and when you've got what we've been said about the injuries and the weapons involved in it, potentially multiple weapons, it does sadly throw a light back on some people who've been on the peripheral of this crime for some time. And what with the information that Michael Addario sent over to me, this just seems real strange timing. This cry havoc situation, could that have been the straw that broke the camel's back? And if the Gonzalez family is suggesting there is someone involved who cannot be gone after, is that simply because they're no longer here? Let me know down below. I'll catch you all in the next one. Mwah.